mention one of the very famous study, H.M. Milner, 1966. We call it H.M. As a short form. So H.M., when he was just 7 years old, he was staying in Connecticut and he got hit by a cyclist when he got very badly injured and he got severe head injuries. After having a serious head injuries, he started to having epileptic attacks at the age of 10, and it was assumed that it is connected with the accident. So by age of 27, he started having so many epileptic attacks on daily basis that he could not lead anymore a normal life, and he was suffering very badly. There was no cure at all. Even the medicines that he was having could not cure him. So after that, one of his doctors, a neurosurgeon, William Sconville, he decided to do an experimental study on him. So what he did, he removed a tissue from HM, or from the temporal lobes, and some tissue from the hippocampus. This surgery was done. He cured from the epileptic attack, so it was a successful surgery. But after many years, Brenda Milner, who is the researcher of which the study we are talking about, Milner came to meet HM, and she realized that HM would forget daily events so much. He became so forgetful. Would forget things as soon as they would occur. He would meet people and forget their names. He would do some task and he would forget that he has done that task, or somebody would give instructions to him. He could not fulfill those instructions and he would just forget. But after the operation was done, so Brenda Milner, she studied HM and came up with some findings that HM remembered everything before the operation, before the surgery that had happened. So he remembered his childhood very clearly, but after the surgery he had a lot of forgetful events and he could not remember most of the things. His personality was unchanged. There was no change in his personality as such. Even there was no problem with his intellectuality. He had no intellectual impairment. He was absolutely fine with that as well. So he was in particularly suffering from retrograde amnesia. Retrograde amnesia means he remembered things, or he had memory before the operation. So whatever happened before the operation, he had memory of that, but after the operation, after the surgery, he did not have any memory, almost no memory at all. So that is called as retrograde amnesia. After a while, he recovered from retrograde amnesia and he started to suffer from anterograde amnesia. Unable to remember the faces of the people he had met in the morning, by afternoon he would forget, and he would behave in a way that these people who have come to meet him, their psychologist or the doctor, they are very new people and that he had never met them before ever. Procedure and results of the study. Now, the aim of the study was to better understand the effects what the surgery had on the patient HM. So, in order to carry out, there were different strategies used. Like I said, it was a case study. Case study, as you all know, has usually a triangulation method. Means we have a lot of different kind of research collection data methods. There could be observation, interviews, then questionnaires, and so on. So in his study, there was psychometric testing was done. This was to see the IQ test of the HM, and the results were above average. That clearly shows that he did not have any kind of intellectual problem at all. Then direct observation of his behavior was done. Then interviews were held with HM and his family members as well. There was also cognitive testing done on the memory recall test, as well as learning tasks such as reverse mirror drawing. So now later, Corkin did an MRI to determine the extent to which the damage had been done to HM's brain. And HM could not acquire any new episodic knowledge, that is memory for events, and he could not acquire new semantic knowledge, that is general knowledge about the world. This suggests that the brain structures that were removed from his brain are important for the transfer of information from short-term to long-term memory. So that means it clearly shows that he had no intellectual problem, he did not have any personality problem, he did not have any other all functional problems. That means all his brain, after the MRI, it clearly showed that all the parts of his brain were perfectly well intact were in place, but there was this specific part that was removed from his brain, was the only part responsible for transferring the memories from short term to long term. So that is what he was actually suffering from. He would meet people, he would do tasks, but he could not remember that after a few minutes or hours. Why? Because whatever he was doing or whomsoever he was meeting, those things were getting registered in his short-term memory. So from short-term memory, he was unable to transfer that information to the long-term memory. So that means those tissues that were removed from hippocampus and the temporal lobes, those were responsible for transferring information from STM to LTM. So the researchers also found that he was able to remember his own house, and he could draw a picture of the floor plan of his new home. So this indicates that cognitive map of the spatial layout of his house that was absolutely intact. There was no problem in it. So that means a memory is not encoded in the same way as semantic or episodic. Now this is very interesting. The person is not able to remember the episodes. The person is not able to remember the meaning of something semantic like knowledge or any kind of facts. They are not able to remember. But they are able to remember the ways of their house, the map of their house, the blueprint of their house and everything. Why? That clearly shows that memory is not just specific to one particular thing. Everything is not stored at one place. Semantic memory is different from procedural memory, and spatial memory is altogether different from episodic memory. So there are different storages for all these things, and everything does not get stored at one place. Now HM had a capacity of working memory since he was able to carry on normal conversation. This requires minimal level of retention of what he would just hear and say. So after, on being asked to recall the number 584, HM was able to do so even after 15 minutes, but only if he had constant rehearsal of motor skills, that is procedural memories, where it is well maintained. For example, he knew how to mow a lawn or do tasks like mirror drawing, in which he had to acquire new eye-hand coordination. Although he showed improvement on the skill over time, but he never remembered learning the skill. So every time Miller asked him to do it, he would say that he's never tried before. So Corkin carried out another MRI scan of HM brain to see that extent of the damage. It was possible to see the parts of HM's temporal lobe, including hippocampus, had the most damage. So hippocampus was the part that was the most damaged, and this clearly shows the localization that specifically is responsible for transferring the memories from your STM to the LTM. This is the summary. The memory system in the brain is highly specialized and a complex system. Hippocampus plays a critical role in converting memories of experience from short-term to long-term memory. Well, the researchers found that short-term memory is not stored in the hippocampus because the hippocampus was removed from HM's brain. That means short-term memory is not stored in hippocampus, it is stored somewhere else. Hippocampus is only transferring the memory because HM was able to, recall or have a, within the 15 minutes he would able to recall whatever was said to him, or he was able to carry a normal conversation. So since HM was able to retain some memories for events that happened long before his surgery, it indicated that the medial temporal region is not the site of permanent storage, but it just plays a role in the organization and permanent storage of memories elsewhere in the brain. So that let's do the evaluation of this study. The first thing is that it was a case study and it was a longitudinal study. It went over for 50 long years. So the good part is, the strength of this study is that it has a lot of data, in-depth, rich data collected by the researcher. So having a rich quality in-depth data is a good strength of the study. But the weakness of the same would be that a person, a researcher can get very close to the patient. They become close, and it can lead to researcher biasness. So your perception changes, your emotions come in, and you can become a little biased. And the another strength of this study was method triangulation. So there were a number of research methods used for it: observation, interviews, survey, psychometric tests, and so on. The limitation of this case study was that it cannot be replicated. It's a very unique case, and there was just one participant for it, so it cannot be replicated, and it is difficult to maybe generalize the same. Some of the study was retrospective in nature. This means that we do not have a lot of data on HM, actual cognitive abilities before the accident. High ecological validity. Everything was conducted in his very natural environment, so this study is of very high ecological validity. Then it also met another good thing is that it meets all ethical guidelines: privacy, confidentiality, protection from harm, and so on.